today's world, people figure out who's being authentic versus who is putting up a charade. The way customers want solutions to their problem fundamentally does not change. So every customer, when they're looking at a brand or when they're looking at any company or any product, eventually they are trying to find a solution to a problem they have. That is
Correct.
the core of every purchase in across industries.
Correct.
I think what changes is primarily the way companies reach out to these customers or the way the companies pitch their services to the customer, right? I'll give an example, a very simple example from telecom days. So when I had joined Airtel, this was again way back in 2009. That was a time there was, like I said, there was no internet, mobile internet as an option itself. So how companies used to pitch their services, telecom companies used to pitch was that okay, we have the widest network, you can talk to anyone in any part of the country. Actually, that was a time when actually if you move from Delhi to Bangalore, you had to pay roaming charges within the country
Hmm.
as well.
Hmm.
So companies used to actually say this as a USP that okay, if you have a Delhi number and you go to Bangalore, you don't need to change the number, you can still use your number, same number on roaming. So that it was all the conversation was about benefits of voice. What is the benefit of voice? What is benefit of network connectivity? Those are the benefits. Today, if you see how telecom industry sells itself, no one talks about voice at all. Everyone talks about 5G. Everyone talks about internet. Everyone talks about speed. Everyone talks about streaming. So those are the use cases. If it's the same industry, and actually, if you look at it at the core, it is broadly the same product, right? Eventually, a telecom company is selling connectivity. But what kind of connectivity are they selling? It's changed from voice to change to data-led connectivity. So that's been the change which has happened in this one industry.
But now we heard that we have moved our economy from being a mass production to a mass customization kind of economy. So there has been a shift in terms of the consumers, how they buy the product, how they trust the product. So when you work in that company, you mentioned that you used to talk about those kind of benefits and features that customers can obtain. But now in today's time, if somebody wants to enter that industry, how will they market to the consumer when consumer behavior has changed so drastically?
Great point, Sakshi. See, you're absolutely right. That initially, a lot of the communication was around benefits and features, right? Which is almost like an inside-out point of view. And which I think at that point in time, that was a fair thing to do because the benefits itself were the, if I say like Airtel back then used to say you'll get connectivity wherever you're traveling in the country. That was actually the benefit was almost equivalent to the outcome itself. That the customers also wanted, okay, if I travel anywhere in the country, I should stay connected. So that's why
Correct.
it was more or less the same. Today's world, one, customers have become more evolved, right? Their need
Yes.
sets have evolved. So and the competition has also changed, right? Now again, 20 years back, probably there were two or three large telecom operators in the country. Today also there are two or three large telecom operators, but the customers know that they have a very easy choice available to them. So if they don't like telecom player A, they can always shift to telecom player B, or they can go to telecom player C. That is an easy
Correct.
switch now. It was not such an easy switch back then. Hence, the companies have to talk outcomes. Like against on the telecom example itself, today's the companies, and if you see the even the latest campaign from Airtel, they are not saying that okay, you get fast speeds, etc. They are saying if you are stuck in a traffic jam and you have to do a meeting, our network will ensure that you get buffering free connectivity on Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So that's the outcome they're saying. As a telecom player,
Hmm.
that's the outcome they can ensure that okay, if you are on the move and then you need to do a video call, we'll make sure that the network does not break. Or if you
Correct.
are at a concert and everyone else is there, and at concerts we know that the traffic, the signals jam up, we will make sure that you get priority connectivity and your phone still continues to work. So those are outcomes, and I think I am a very strong believer of this entire concept that consumers eventually buy outcomes. They
Hmm.
don't buy features. So you, and again, it
Completely
goes back to the
agree.
same principle. It goes back to the same thought that companies have to solve a problem for the consumers. And if you don't pitch your outcomes, which is actually the problem is the consumers want solved, then you can have the best features in the world, but the consumers will probably never get engaged with you. So I very strongly believe with that.
you mentioned that within this telecom industry, and even there are many other industries as well, where there are big players. Like this is not a new category altogether. We have like Jio, we have Airtel, we have Vodafone, and these are the players who have acquired major chunk of market share within India itself. So
Sure.
if yeah, from your perspective, if somebody wants to enter such big categories which are known by everybody, how to market and grow that business to a certain level that you can compete with the big players as well.
Hmm. I think the travel industry is a very good example, right? That they are
Yeah.
entrenched players, large players, and it's primarily a tech play, right? That it's not so much as I say that like telecom would be slightly harder to break into because it is a lot of capital investment involved.
Yeah.
You have to buy licenses from the government, you have to set up telecom infra, so that's a much harder problem for a startup, right?
Mm.
Geo eventually actually did that. Geo was a startup when they launched in
Yeah.
2016, but not a conventional startup. They were backed by the largest business house in the country, so I think they were
Yes.
able to go through it. See, in an industry, in any industry, it could be travel, it could be e-commerce. What defines success is that what is the problem you're solving, and how are you solving for it. Even in the travel space, I'm pretty sure, and I know for a fact that a lot of people working at a young startup age who are trying to solve these travel problems in a different way.
Hmm.
So, see, there are conventionally, if you look at it, there are only two ways to disrupt a market as a new player. Either you come up with a new product, like so as to say, if you were to, I would probably say that when iPhone came for the first time, theoretically you can say it was a new product because there was no other large. There was touch phones, but for the matter of convenience, we should say there were no other large touch phones in the market. So it was a
Correct.
new product category itself. It disrupted it. The other model of disruption is how do you disrupt the service, the model of that industry. So again, if you look at it, when Indigo came into the market, there were other larger players like Jet Airways was there, Air India was there, and all these large players were there. But Indigo came and before that Deccan Airways came and they came with a model, low cost services model.
Hmm.
They're still offering the same service. What does an airline do? It takes you from point A to point B. They're still doing the same service. It's the same product. It's the same aircraft in most cases, but they change the service model. So
Correct.
I think eventually for anyone to disrupt an existing player, they have to figure out one, is there a way to disrupt with product? So for example, someone could come and say, okay, make my trip. The product is that today you have to go, you have to search, you have to select, etc., etc. I will probably use AI to create a new product experience in itself where you may not need to follow 10 steps to make a booking. The booking can happen in 3 steps. That could be fundamentally to say a product innovation.
Correct.
Or there could be a service innovation in the sense to say that Make My Trip is offering, I think one of the points you mentioned earlier, right? Make My Trip is now a mass player
Hmm.
that it offers the same service to everyone. Out of 50 million customers, if they visit Make My Trip, all of them get the same experience and same service because it's the same portal and everything. But there could be a specific segment of customers who need a slightly different handling of the services. So again, I'm just throwing an idea. It could very well be that people say that okay, Make My Trip probably worked for people who are new to internet 20 years back, 25 years back. Today, the Gen Z who is almost to say born with the internet in their hands, right? That today a 2 year old also can probably operate a smartphone much better than many adults.
Mhm.
So for that generation, maybe they could say Make Matter probably is not answering the kind of travel needs they have. So we will create a travel platform which is directed at Gen Z, which caters to Gen Z taste, which caters to Gen Z needs. So it will probably be heavy on solo trips. It could probably be heavy on backpacking trips. It could probably have. It will not have five-star hotels as listings. It will probably have hostels for listings. Kids go on hikes, so you will have hostels. You will have dormitories. So I'm just throwing out an idea. So if someone wants to disrupt, they can pick up a separate niche within the category or a category within the category if there are a need which is unmet, and then go after that. That gives them a foothold into that category. And once they get that, then it is always easier to expand that. Once you always have almost like a what you say foundation in that industry, then you can always keep building on top of that. So would be the way I would approach one just entry into a new category. And I think the second part which you said that how would you then go about doing marketing, etc. I think again it goes back that what is the niche you've selected, which is the audience, what is the core proposition which you're offering, how is it different from the rest, and then just iterating on that outcome base, that why is it a solution better than the others in the market. I think that framework definitely is what needs to be driven by the new entrant to get a share. I think that's the way I would advise people to move forward.
Well, if I move away from the telecom and the travel industry, there are other categories which are red ocean kind of market. Have
Mm-hmm.
heard like there's so many marketing agencies. We even joke about that, आजकल इतने brand ने जितनी agency खुल चुकी हैं. So there are many such categories which are like extremely crowded. We always say
Yes.
that वो इतनी saturate हो चुकी है, nobody can grow after a certain point. And similarly, there are many other consumer based products as well. For example, like lifestyle fashion, that gets difficult for to find a niche over there, then kind of sit on that problem and provide the solution to specific kind of audience. So how will a person find that market gap within that category and sit on top of that gap and then try to market your services or your product at the same time?
Got it. See, one, it's important that whenever someone chooses a category, it is historically, or rather, it's a growing category, right? And I'm saying, see, all categories are growing only. I don't think there are, apart from a very, very rare few, most categories, most industries, I would say today, as human population keeps going up, the industry sizes are going to go up only. What changes is a matter of growth. That some industries may be growing at 20% year on year, versus some industries will be growing at 5% year on year. So it's a growing industry. I think so. Let's take the example you gave of the marketing agency, right? And I think that's a good, heavily cluttered market and a lot of people out there, right? I think the way to look at it again, and I always say that go back to the first principles. That today, if I have to start a marketing agency from scratch, I think that's the very the first question is that there are at least 1,000 marketing agencies already out there in the market. What? Why should I launch a marketing agency?
Hmm.
So I think the simple question is that if I want to launch an agency today, I need to have that answer, that what is it my agency going to do, which is going to be different than the 1,000 out there. There has to be something different, and the something different can be multiple ways. It could be as simple as saying, and that is the easiest solution in the world, right? People say that, okay, my price will be cheaper than everyone else in the market. I will make sure that I will be the most economical service in the market, irrespective of whatever kind of clients I pick up. That is one option. The other option is that you could come back and say that my industry will be a vertical expert because it will be staffed by people from a particular industry. So you could say, okay, we are going to, theoretically, if I were to say, I would say we are going to go into e-commerce only, and we will staff our entire team, whether it's the account managers, whether it's the people who are running the campaigns at the back end, whether it's the designers. All of them would be people who have only their specific industry experience, so that when we go to the clients, we say, okay, you go to other agencies, but they are all multi-generic agencies, multi-industry agencies. But you are an e-commerce person. You need someone who understands e-commerce deeply. I live and breathe e-commerce. So why don't you come to me? And I think, again, those are things which, these are the how you pitch the story. So the job of this agency would be that, okay, maybe the overall advertising industry agency is moving only at 5%, growing 5%, but I know e-commerce companies in the country are growing at 30%. So if I create an agency which is focused only on e-commerce, then I can actually grow faster than the entire e-commerce industry is moving. And what it would mean is that I would probably displace some existing agencies who are servicing those customers. That is fair, but I need to get a share, and I will get that if I create my niche. So that is the way I would look at it. And again, the same example I would very well say to the other, like the examples you gave, right? That other industries, consumer industries like shoes, soaps, beauty. I think all of these are industries where, in today's world, actually, if you see all the new D2C brands, they're actually going and finding these niches itself. That India had many large global beauty brands for the longest time, right? But today, I'm sure most of the people would want to go to a Nykaa or a Purple or a Mamaearth and all of these places and all these new brands to find new beauty solutions rather than go to a traditional Lakme or anything else. Shoes, there are so many new shoe brands which have come up in India itself over the last few years, whether it's a sneaker brand like Comet or whether that's even Neiman's and all of these players. Now, again, the question is, shoe as a category has not really changed. It is still the same footwear which you use for your regular wear. But due to the design innovations, due to their communication innovation, a lot of these brands are just built on community. What's that t-shirt brand, like, I know that Blue Orange.
Mm.
If you've heard of this t-shirt brand called Blue
Yeah.
Orange, the Apparel brand.
Yeah.
I actually was speaking to someone in my team. He was a youngster, 25-year-old, and he was wearing a blue orange t-shirt. And I said, "It's a 3,000 rupees worth t-shirt. Why do you wear it? Means, is the material so good? What is it?" His answer was, "No, I'm a part of a community. When I go to an event, and he said that I went to a concert and there were 10 other kids or 10 other boys wearing this blue orange t-shirt. We immediately felt we were part of something bigger than just the
Yeah.
t-shirt." So, end of the day, you could say the t-shirt category is not growing or the apparel category is stagnant, and their apparel category has thousands and thousands of players. But still, a blue orange comes, creates a niche, creates a community, creates a feeling of belonging. And today they have such a beautiful store in Ambience Mall, which I don't think many other large global brands also have such a well designed store in Ambience. So so that's about it. So you have to find a unique reason of why your brand is different from the others, and then just keep
Absolutely.
at it.
One of the most famous marketer mentioned that USP is not what you need to focus on. You need to focus on unique buying point, which basically is specific to customer itself. Because nowadays customers are more focused on what kind of product am I buying, what kind of value am I getting, is the cost as per the desirability of the product, what kind of tribe am I joining from that product, where am I buying that, can I trust the founder, can I trust the person I'm buying from. So these kind of factors are what people are actually, or consumers nowadays are actually considering, because they feel like if I can trust the person I'm buying the product from, I can definitely buy it today and just worry later down the line. So right now the trust is
Absolutely.
the main factor that actually drives the buyability of any kind of consumer. And that's why any person who is kind of starting a brand or starting a startup, that person needs to have a presence of its own to show that trust in the eyes of consumer. So like that really brings me to a question about the personal branding. So what do you think about personal branding and how do you see this term in today's time?
One, I think it's a very interesting space, right? Personal branding. And I think it's been made possible with the exploration of, or rather, the explosion of social media over, say, I would say, the last 8 to 10 years itself, right? Means if you were a conventional business 15, 20 years back, uh, actually, I can think of one example where the business was built on the back of personal branding, which is if you look at this company called MDH Masale,
Yeah.
where that Dadaji became the face of the brand
Yeah.
for the longest time. Means you would see him on a billboard or you would see him in the newspaper and you would know it's an MDH ad.
Yeah.
And he became the face of the brand, right? But again, I think probably one or two such examples I would say in the entire history of whatever I have seen. I think in the today's time, what has happened is that once you are trying to start a new business, it's become more easier in the sense of launching a new business because how things are, how you can go about with technology, etc. It's actually become harder to get consumers' attention
Yeah.
because if you were to look at 10 years back without social media, if you were a new brand, what you needed to do, you would probably go to a newspaper office, put a big ad, and that was the newspaper, television, radio, hoardings. Those were the four media assets you needed to worry about. Even if you did a good job in two of these, you would get attention, and that would help you build your business. Today, the channels are not limited to four. I think the channels are at least 20. You have emails, you have WhatsApp, you have Facebook ads separate, Google ads separate, other
Yeah.
channels as well. So the thing is, how do you get attention?
Mhm.
And that has become the problem with most brands. So that is where personal branding or a founder-led brand approach makes sense. See, what is the job of any advertisement end of the day? The job of any advertisement is one, to create awareness about the service, and second, eventually the advertisement itself should generate some element of trust for the brand, because the goal is to drive a purchase decision. So one, if you are aware of it, and second, you have some trust in the brand. If I see that MDS Dadaji in the ad, probably I'll say, okay, he's been doing it for 90 years. Why do brands, historically, brands used to say in the business for 50 years, in the business for 70 years, in the business for 90 years? That is a line to drive trust.
Mm.
So ads job is to drive trust. Now, if you are unable to get attention in the first place because of the scattered media environment, then how do you build trust? You can probably show an ad on Facebook, but consumers are seeing hundreds of ads on Facebook. They are not going to even remember it. So that is where the personal branding or founder led becomes important, because then the founder can present his authentic story. And I think that is where personal brands actually succeed. And I know a lot of people do it also with the lack of authenticity. But eventually, I think in today's world, people figure out who's being authentic versus who is putting up a charade. So
Correct.
in that sense, personal branding and founder-led branding becomes important for new businesses, because that is the very important channel to build trust with the end consumers. That there are terms like building in public and all of that. Those just create that element that okay, I know what they're doing, and I believe in what they're saying, and hence I trust them, and hence I will probably go and have a purchase of their product. So, and once that founder story is there, then after that, once all of those channels or emails or ads can happen, but eventually the trust building is actually happening primarily through the founder. I think one of the in the recent days there are more a lot of D2C brands who have used this approach, right? At a founder-led approach. Again, an example, the Whole Truth. Uh,
Yeah.
they've entirely built their entire story on the founder himself being the face of the company, one, and secondly, he being he talking to the customers in an authentic manner. That he's been very clear, very vocal from day one that the food which people historically eat from brands which are they conventionally, they have a lot of chemicals in it, and hence that's the harm it causes to the body. So he's building trust. There's always a flip side to this as well, that if you become so if your trust factor is largely dependent on the founder, then if there is a mishap by the founder, which could happen, right? All of us are humans. Then that also reflects back on the brand eventually. So it is, in my view, this founder-led approach is good. It works when you have to cater to some initial trust challenges and build that initial trust. But my very strong personal belief also is that after the company or the business reaches a certain scale, the founder branding approach should take a backseat, and it actually should become the company should start earning the trust now, so that individual it cannot be individual dependent. The individual goes away, the company should still run.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the hard transition which most D2C brands have today, that they are founder led, they have founders at the forefront. But the moment the founders take a step back, the business does not have enough trust of its own to stand and drive growth. So
That's true.
that's the challenge I think which a lot of businesses are facing.
That's true. That's true. I'll get straight into the brand building part. I just want you to take any example, like you can take Make My Trip or any other brand that you actually like in terms of their marketing and branding. And if you can walk me through how the marketing decisions and branding decisions happen, what are the strategies that teams usually take upon, how the consumer research happen, how do you experiment and validate so that whoever the person wants to build their own brands, they can actually take those learnings and implement in their business and brands as well.
Sure. So see, I will probably take an example from my Make My Trip days. That while it was an established brand, then it's also one of the companies which fundamentally believes that there are other problems which need to get solved, right, on top of the problems they're already solving. So we always start with typically an hypothesis, internal hypothesis, right? That I'll take an example that this was a time when Make My Trip was trying to launch into UAE. So again, the thought was that okay, there are enough Indians who live in UAE, so there is a certain recall for Make My Trip. Using our internal data, we could see we got a decent amount of traffic on our India pages from UAE as well. So we felt that the challenge, and then when we spoke to some customers informally, we figured out that customers used to say that because you're an India website, if I'm sitting in UAE, I have to pay in Indian rupees. Versus if I'm sitting in UAE, I am living in UAE, I am earning in the dirhams, I should be able to pay in dirhams. And then your website today, because it's an India first website, you are primarily catering to the Indian customers, which is how it would be, right? That you are showing
Correct.
destinations for Indians, you're showing flight options for Indians.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that was I would say, the informal hypothesis for us. Then we went into that market. We got some agencies, and because again, That's the advantage of being in a large organization. You can get agencies to do a lot of work, but it's a thing which even small brands can easily do or young businesses can do, right? The fundamental goal is just to get some validation of the problem statement or hypothesis which you have. So what we would do typically in a large org is that find say 20, 30 people, try to create either one-on-one interviews with them or try to create a group discussion with them and understand from them how do they look at travel as a category, and what is their typical booking behavior, how do they book tickets for their holidays, how do they book flight tickets, how do they book hotels, how would they book any activities which they do. And so it's a open-ended conversation most of the time so that the people can share what are their experiences. And during that probably you will hear some of the things that okay, this is where I faced a problem, or this is where I felt if there could be something better than this, then it would help me. So those kind of insights is what you pick up from those conversations. Even if you're a young brand, I think it's today with the advent of internet, it is quite easy. You could create a questionnaire wherein you can roll it out to your friends, families, or probably anyone who is in this audience and get their inputs on what are the challenges, right? So that research, what it does, it actually does two things. One, it helps you validate your hypothesis, validates or disvalidate your hypothesis. That okay, this is a genuine, we believe it's a genuine problem, but there is a significant chunk of customers who also believe it is a significant problem which needs a solution. So I think that becomes the first input in any business or a brand building cycle. I think the second thing which also these conversations help us do is also figure out that how uh, passionately do people feel about their problem statement. See, I think a lot of times people will have a problem, but it's to say that is it really hurting them, or are they okay, they can adjust with it. So the classical example which I gave is that there are two kind of medicines. One is a painkiller, which is you need to have. If you don't take a painkiller, then your head will split. The other is vitamin capsules. They are good to have. Obviously, there is something lacking in your body. That's why you take vitamin capsules. But even if you don't take it, you are not going to feel the pain immediately. Maybe it is something which will linger on for years or whatever, but you will not feel the pain. But if you have to make a decision, painkiller or vitamins, and you are a headache, you will say, yeah, I will take
Painkiller.
the painkiller. So you have to also, the surveys and these interactions help you validate that how strong is that problem statement. So like when we were going into UAE, what we figured out was surprisingly, and that's the insight which still holds today as well, for large geographies across the globe, not just UAE, uh, there is not a single large player which aggregates flights. So if
Okay.
you actually look at how Make My Trip started in India, Make My Trip started with flight booking platform that you could go, you could search for the flight of your choice, and then you could book it, and then you can whatever, right? Hotels and everything actually got added later. If you look at the other geographies, it's the other way around. They have large hotel booking players like a booking.com is there, Agoda is there, all of these players are there, but they don't have any large flight booking player. Or actually, if you think of it, there is no, apart from one Skyscanner, there is no other large flight booking platform like Make My Trip. So that was the insight with which we said, okay, we will go and enter into this market and we will say that we bring multiple flight options for you at one place. So that became our going in strategy. And then obviously, as we also realized, that was the time when the world was still undergoing COVID. So travel restrictions kept coming up time to time. That one day flights were open, next day flights were closed. So we had to go in with a hotel strategy as well. And again, the gap we identified was that a booking.com or any of the other larger players, they were like the large incumbent players in that market. So obviously they had a larger share, they had much more, what you would say, share of mind for customers. So our marketing challenge and the business challenge became how do we even get attention from customers to say, okay, why should they start using Make My Trip? So then again it went back to the same consumer philosophy, that who is the consumer. So one, obviously we said anyone who's an Indian, they already know who what Make My Trip is. But probably they left India 15 years back, so they would remember Make My Trip as the flights option only. So to them, we will say, okay, Make My Trip is here now in UAE, but now we are not just a flight player. You can also book hotels, etc., etc. Three, four things you can build, and you can pay in your local currency. So that became the USP or the unique buying proposition for that segment. But there is another population in the UAE which is non-Indians. They don't even know Make My Trip as a brand.
Correct.
So for them, how do we establish credibility for Make My Trip? How do we trust for Make My Trip? So there again, we went back and said, Make My Trip. Make My Trip is actually currently listed on the Nasdaq in the US. So we said we are 25 years in operation. We are the largest travel platform in South Asia, because across South Asia we are the largest, right? So we are the largest platform of South Asia. We have now come to UAE, and for trust validation, we have been listed on Nasdaq for the past 20 years. And we are now bringing you the solution that, okay, you can book flights, hotels, everything from one single platform. So rather than going to booking.com, where you could probably only do hotels, and that too also from a very limited section, we are opening up the much wider world for you. And our trust factors were 25 years in existence, Nasdaq listed, largest player in South Asia. So same company, same market, but the communication was different depending on who we were speaking to.
Correct.
And that actually also then decided that when we were doing advertisements in that market, so there were certain TV channels which were Arabic language only. Obviously, it's an Arab market, right? And we knew that if it's an Arabic channel, so Indians are not be going to be, even the Indian diaspora is not going to be watching those Arabic channels. Fair assumption, 90% it will be non-Indians only. So we
Correct.
said, okay, here the ads which will run, they will talk about our USPs from a non-Indian perspective. Versus when we were to advertise in areas where Indians lived predominantly, or if you were to put a hoarding or you were to put a print ad where we knew it will go into Indian households, there our communication will be different. It would be the ones the points I said for Indian community. That is how we'll go and pitch it. So that is how we built Make My Trip as a business in UAE. And I think marketing is just a way of presenting what is the company's unique strengths and how are they solving for the consumer needs. So marketing is just a way of helping the business sell itself better to the consumers.
Correct.
And this strategy of finding the niches within the audience in that market, so first validating it through research, then figuring out what we have, and then mapping it on top of the audience profiles, I think that helped us build Make My Trip as a strong player in that market.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Like refining your communication based on which market you're targeting, what kind of audience you're dealing with, and what kind of distribution channel that you need to focus on to get the right clarity within your customer mind is very much important. So, like, this is something that you mentioned. Make My Trip already had some credibility within the industry, within the Indian market. Since you are a brand consultant to multiple D2C brands and B2B brands as well, from that perspective, I just want to understand whenever you are approaching startup or any kind of mid-level brand, how do you approach the brand marketing part for that kind of startup? Because over there's no credibility which has been built out by the brand. It is completely new. It has been market for like quite a few years. Nobody knows. So how do you approach a new brand in terms of their brand marketing?
Again, I think a lot of it goes back to, in my head, to the first principles of how do you do brand building, right? I think I say there are three pillars to brand building, that who is the audience you are going after? Like, who's your, in B2B, you say ICP, in consumer, we say
Yeah,
TG. So,
yeah,
who is your TG slash ICP? That is number one. What is the problem you're solving for them? That is the point number two. And third is, why should they trust you? Which means, why do you think, why should the customers believe that you will solve this particular problem better than any other options in the market? I think that remains the 3 point framework on which any brand is built. So, what I see today is a lot of brands who struggle, and they say probably they're 3, 4 years in the business and they have not been able to make a mark. I think a lot of challenges go back to the point that they probably have not answered one or more of these three questions very honestly.
Okay.
So a lot of brands think that okay, and maybe just take a hypothetical example. Today, a new shoe brand wants to come in, and they will say, okay, I will start putting out ads that okay, I have a new design of the shoe, etc., etc. I'll start putting ads on Meta. I know Instagram ads work. I'll create a cool reel and put it out there. And then after a few months of spending money, they'll probably say, अच्छा यार पैसा तो बहुत खर्चा हो गया, orders नहीं आए होते. So the problem then, yeah, more often than not, if you go back, you'll find that it is that they had not defined answers to these problems, or which actually the answers to these problems get into what is the brand's positioning. That positioning needs to be really very clear. What is the brand doing for customers? And I can very well say that majority of the brands who end up not working is because they're not clear on what is their positioning. Once your positioning is clear, and you are sure that you are delivering on what you are promising, then I think growth fundamentally becomes a factor of distribution.
Right.
Then the wider distribution you get, whether it's through and advertisement and all, is distribution only. So whether you are doing advertisement, or if you're B2B company, are you doing better partnerships, or if you are a services company, are you able to leverage your existing client base to get more word of mouth out there? All of this is distribution then. But you need to be very clear on your positioning, and not just be clear in terms of words. You have to deliver on that positioning as well. You for example, you can't say that I have the lightest shoe in the world, and then figure out that okay, it is not the lightest, it was actually lightest with the asterisk, and it actually meant something else. So
Mhm.
you actually are not delivering on what you're promising.
Yeah.
So be very clear on what your positioning is, deliver it, and once there is success, then leverage the right distribution channels to expand your message. Now, a lot of times that would mean that trying some hacks, and which is what in today's world has come to be known as growth hacks. Okay, how do we get higher distribution without probably spending a lot of money? Those are the point which you said is experimentation. That you will try different things. That okay, let me try this. This works. Okay, did not work. Positioning still is the same, but let me try and on a different channel with a different storyline or different content type. Now, all of those are experiments on content. And in today's world, the benefit with social media is you can try multiple variants. You can try 20 variants of the same positioning in different ways and figure out अच्छा 20 नहीं चल रहे, 5 चल रहे हैं इसमें से. Okay, let's just pick these 5 and then amplify them more. So
Mm.
those then become content experiments. But positioning does not change. I think the brand which is experimenting with its positioning frequently, those are the ones which face a challenge that okay, how do we grow and why are we not growing? Is the simple reason is that your target audience does not see you as a consistent player. They see you changing your messaging, they see you changing your positioning regularly. So you don't occupy any particular mind space in their head. They don't know what you stand for, and if they don't know what you stand for, then it's very difficult for you to drive purchase decisions out of it.
If let's suppose there's a brand who wants to decide their positioning, how do they define their positioning within any category? So let's suppose if you are taking example of shoe or any other fashion brand, how do they figure out what kind of positioning they want to get into their consumers' mind in?
See, again, go back to the framework of what, who, what, and why. I think that's
Okay.
the core principle of defining positioning. If it's a new shoe brand, they should say that who are they making this product for. It could be for they could say that okay, we want to make this product for senior citizens, or they could say no, we are a sneaker brand and we want to create a new sneaker only for dedicated marathon runners. So that is their who.
Okay.
What is the problem they are solving? Then obviously for marathon runners, there are existing shoes already there, no? So
Hmm.
they would say, what are we solving? Okay, probably endurance is what will be better, or ease, lightweight is what will be better. And then the question will be, why do they think they're better than the others? Then they could probably say that, okay, because our soles use this particular proprietary technology which
Hmm.
makes cushion absorption better, or our designs are the ones, while everyone is, the conventional marathon running shoes are all plain boring. We will make it more happening and design as funky, which will appeal more to the Gen Z audience. So that is our differentiation from everyone else in the category.
Correct.
So this who, what, why, if a shoe brand will do this, they will come up and theoretically they could come up and say, okay, we are a Gen Z first marathon running shoe brand which brings funky designs, unlike anyone else in the market. Now that is their messaging, or that is their positioning statement. Now messaging, obviously articulation could be different. They could use a good jingle around it. They could use a funky language around it. All of that is secondary, but this is their positioning. And then every time they go out in the market, whether it's on advertisement, whether it is even in their, it is as simple as in their box design, whether it is in their store design, everywhere they have to live and breathe that positioning. And again, that is the challenge with a lot of people, is that they think positioning is just a marketing asset problem. Positioning is not just a marketing asset problem. Positioning is a company problem. The entire company has to live it. You can't
Correct.
say I am the best. For example, if you're a technology company, you cannot say I'm the best technology company in the world. And tomorrow, if someone has to go to your website to drop you a lead, it is a integrated Google form which is sitting over there.
Yeah.
Your positioning breaks right there and then, even before customer has seen your product. So
Yeah.
every part of your company has to live and breathe that positioning. Then that is when the success
Correct.
happens.
Correct, correct. I completely agree. Definitely. Somil, thank you so much. Like, you have given so many valuable insights that I can't wait to share with other people as well. So definitely your experience and your expertise has given a very wide range of viewpoints across different questionnaires that people usually have, because this was a survey that I also ran, and these were the very common questions that came
Okay.
to me. Yeah, so that's why I kind of cluttered all of them together into separate topics, because this is what people really want to know about. So that's why you have literally answered every each one of them, along with the pitfalls and what kind of frameworks that should be incorporated for each. So thank you so much, Somil, for taking out time and
Thank you so
sharing
much
your
for having.
insights as well.
Sure.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much for
Somil.
having me on this, Sakshi, and all the best to you and all your viewers. I'm sure they found value out of it.
Thank you so much, Somil. Thank you.